So thank you all for joining us now for what is episode number 18 of the Mantell Associates Network, which has been crazy since we first started it back in March 2019. So lots of success. And today I'm delighted to join Rom Mendel onto the Mantell Associates Network. Rom is a very busy man. He is the CEO of ClearPath Management and is also the chairman of the board at Duearity as well. So absolute pleasure just to have you on here, Rom. And what I would love to do is just to get kind of straight into everything, into your life. So it would be brilliant if you could kind of talk me through your life being the CEO of one organization, on the chair of another organization. You had previously been the CEO of another one. Talk us through your kind of life being in the consultancy space, working across a range of different areas, how your average day is looking, how you're managing it, everything.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, and thank you for inviting me. Yeah, happy to share. So look, like many other people, the last 12 months have been life-changing for me. Until recently, my focus has been to lead Cochlear Bone Anchor Solutions with its 230 employees during the pandemic. And like so many other leaders, my priorities were to ensure the health and safety of the employees, protect the business, and support the customers who really depend on our technology to be able to hear and interact with their daily life. So my executive team and I had to learn to be visible and communicate with people remotely. And we did this while leading some significant changes to our operating model and and we had to adapt to the changing business conditions. So remote change management was something that we need to get really good at. And I can say that it has never been more important to ensure that people understand and get clarity of purpose, why, and a disciplined execution of the prioritized plan. So the communication and the change management were very focused on those. And I'm extremely proud of what the people have achieved and that their commitment to achieving the company goals was incredible during the pandemic, even when we all had to go through and in some cases suffer through all these changes. So independent of this pandemic, I recently left my role as managing director of Cochlear Bone Anchor Solutions. I've been in that role for about 5.5 years, 14 years in total at Cochlear, and decided it was time to pursue new opportunities. The backdrop to that was that life science and medtech in Sweden, in Western Sweden, is booming. And if anything, investments in these type of companies and technologies has only increased during the pandemic and not gone backwards. So I decided to spend more time on that and pursue opportunities in that space. So today I am, as you mentioned, the chairman of the board for Duearity AB, which will be going public, be publicly traded next month. And I advise and invest in a number of exciting small medtech companies in the region. And you could say, you asked me about the challenge. The challenge for me as a founder of a new company, a new business, was really to expand my network and doing it remotely, so expanding, collaborating remotely. So today I have meaningful collaborations with people that I never met in real life, like we're having a conversation right now. So this is the first for me, is to how do you build a network and how do you build meaningful relationship with people that you never met in real life. But it's getting better. I'm getting better at it. That said, you cannot beat a real life face-to-face meeting. So I do try, when possible, to under safe conditions to facilitate also face-to-face meetings.
Unbelievable.
It's been a learning curve.
Yeah, unbelievable. I think that we've all kind of had that because I've now got so many business friends who I've met but never actually met, if that makes sense. It's just been kind of crazy and everything. But honestly, with everything that you've got going on, I'm running one company, a recruitment organization, Mantell Associates, and I'm stressed 24/7. And you've got all of this going on. You left the company, you're starting as a founder of a new organization, having to break into that space, and you're going through the process of taking a company public, which I've only heard about from people who have done it or who are trying to do it. So huge credit in terms of how you're balancing it all. And something which is really important around COVID-19, around the businesses that you've got, is hearing technology. And what I want to find out about is what you and your organizations are doing is absolutely amazing. But how has COVID-19 impacted that industry, in terms of hearing technology, and what challenges have you faced as a leader in that space during COVID-19 and this global pandemic?
Good question. So hearing technologies, or most hearing technology-related procedures, are elective. So COVID did have a quite significant negative impact on the industry due to the fact that facilities had to cut down on elective procedures, and among them also on hearing technology procedures. The good news is that in many countries this is turning around, and in many countries the market is recovering. So the future outlook for the industry overall is looking good. Now, it is somewhat a paradox that while access to hearing technology has become more difficult during the pandemic, the need for them has actually increased. And just for a start, to give a couple of numbers, people who have caught COVID and got sick with COVID, about 8% of those patients got also a hearing loss associated with that.
Wow.
And
you never hear that.
Even a higher number got tinnitus. So, and we don't know yet if in all cases it will be permanent or will be temporary, but it does shed a light on the importance of hearing and the impact that COVID also has on hearing. Now, we know that people with hearing loss and with tinnitus have always struggled with social isolation. And now with the pandemic, people using face masks that make lip reading really difficult, or the social distancing, these people are even more challenged today and in need of solution to help them hear and communicate in this environment, and also to be able to deal with some of the psychological effects of their hearing loss, their tinnitus, and the isolation. All that is more difficult due to the pandemic. So the need for hearing technology, the need for healthcare associated with hearing is even more important. I would say that what people are doing about that, well, telemedicine, I think, is crucial. So we got to get it right. I think it's still early days, but telemedicine and everything around that, from the regulatory and the clinical pathway side, is a crucial enabler to be able to deliver these technologies to patients.
That is absolutely incredible. I've never heard that stat. You never hear about that sort of stuff. What you do get told is, of course, what's going on in India with all of this stuff, what's going on globally. Yeah. What you don't hear, and it's interesting, I was talking to a gentleman a couple of weeks, probably 2 months ago, and he had COVID. And he said COVID itself wasn't so bad, but he's been left with a lot of things in his body afterwards, which have been absolutely horrible. And you don't hear about all of the after effects and the hearing and the isolation which comes with not being able to hear and being in a lockdown. Absolute nightmare. So what you're doing in both your organizations and Duearity is absolutely amazing. The role of chairman is an interesting one. What impact are you able to have on the Duearity business, being the chairman of the board?
Yeah, no, thank you. So look, first let's start maybe with their mission. The mission of Duearity is to improve the life of people who suffer from tinnitus. The company's goal is to disrupt the tinnitus market by making effective tinnitus management accessible and affordable. So the company, as I mentioned, is in an exciting phase right now because it will be traded publicly on the Swedish NASDAQ First North from May 11th, so very short time. And in parallel, the team is developing and completing the technology and the CE marking of the technology of the first generation product. Now, the management team and the development team are extremely competent. So my job is actually relatively easy, I would say, compared to maybe the chairman. We also have a very strong board. But yeah, there's work to do. I would say that my role as a chairman is to leverage my experience, my years in medtech and in hearing tech, to provide a perspective and some guidance when needed to the leadership team, and ensure, of course, also that we adhere with the Swedish regulations, Swedish standards, according to Swedish law. So it's more of a coaching and more of a hands-off and not too operational role. Even though it's a relatively small company, the team is doing a fantastic job. So it's more of a coach and an advisor.
Absolutely amazing. And I've heard that you guys are are planning to become available in 2022. What are your growth plans involved in getting to that point? A lot of work involved, a lot of growth.
Yeah, and we're working through for the commercial plans right now, so it's a very relevant question for us. Lots of good debates in the meeting rooms. But look, I think that Duearity's growth is really strongly connected to the unmet needs and the cost of patients to society. So tinnitus patients cost a lot of money to society. So the tinnitus market is actually ripe for disruption. It is estimated about 5% of the entire world population suffers from acute or burdensome tinnitus, where they actually need to do something about it in order to function normally in everyday life. And 5% of the entire world population, that's a pretty big number.
Yeah.
And as I said, the cost to society and to the patient are quite significant. I mean, there's this one study that quotes over $2,000 a year cost society to take care of a patient with tinnitus, depending, of course, on the healthcare systems. But it's actually quite a significant sum. So at the same time, the therapy options available to these patients are quite limited. They can be very expensive. They require multiple sessions for months and months and months, and a lot of commitment and time commitment from the patient in order to improve the situation. And by the way, tinnitus, so far, there's no real cure to tinnitus. So it's more about how you manage this condition, not how you get rid of it, really. So what Duearity is trying to do is to aim to provide easy access to clinically proven and affordable treatment options for tinnitus anytime, anywhere. And that, I think that will be a disruption. I mean, that's why I fell in love with this company. So the team has developed a very simple to use product. It's called Duearity, and it will be ordered online. So you don't need to go to a physician in order to order it. The good thing about it is that you can use it anytime, even when you're working or when you're sleeping, which is important because the treatment of tinnitus requires, as I said, several hours a day of treatment with different noise or sound treatments. So, so the product is first designed to provide relief, so immediate relief to tinnitus, which is that discomfort you get from having tinnitus. But it also designed to provide over time, as the more you use it, to reduce the unpleasantness, to reduce the severity of the condition. And it's based on a clinically proven method called TRT, which is tinnitus retraining therapy. And one of the unique features about this product is that it leaves your ears open to use its own conduction. So you can use it when you're going about your daily life. Because your ears are open, you don't have to plug your ears like most other solutions.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it's a neat solution, and look, we're working on the commercial plans. The team is working hard to get it out, as you said, in 2022. We're hoping for early 22, depending, of course, on CE mark. There's always some risk associated with that, especially in these MDR days where the regulatory bodies, the notified bodies, are very busy. But we're very hopeful for an early 22 release.
Unbelievable. Thank you so much for going through all of that. And what I want to do now is go a little bit into the other organization that you're leading at the moment as CEO, which is Clear Path Management. In Clear Path Management, you founded this year, February this year, which has been obviously not going for that long yet. Exciting times ahead. I know the feeling of starting up a company, being right at the start. I still feel like we're there now. But what would be brilliant to understand is what offering it has and impact it can have on the life science, pharmaceutical, and the medical device space.
Yeah, I think some people could question my timing there, but
yes, very true.
As I said, on the good side, like I said, there's no lack of companies in the life science and medtech field here in Sweden, and no lack of investment in them. So that's the background to it. So really, what I do with ClearPath is I help mainly high tech and medtech companies with consulting services, interim management, and angel investments. That's kind of like the tagline. My focus so far has been on these small companies that have a technology that can disrupt the market by solving a real problem with an innovative solution. So I already spoke about Duearity and how they plan to disrupt the tinnitus market. Maybe I can mention another company that I'm working and advising with. today. It's called Njord Medtech, and Njord Medtech was founded by a nurse, a head nurse in the Sahlgrenska University Hospital. She was heading, or she is, the head nurse in the radiology department in the hospital. And she decided to solve a serious problem, which is around how you transfer patients more efficiently in these departments, in these labs. And just to describe the problem, today patients who are wheeled into the radiology lab to get an X-ray or some kind of a scan, it requires several nurses to lift those patients up and transfer them from the bed into the bed of the machine or where they're going to get the scan. Several nurses, and sometimes the patient can also be relatively heavy. And they do this operation, this manual operation, back and forth after they finish the scanning, hundreds of times a day in an average radiology department with several labs. And this manual lift procedure, the implication of that are huge. I mean, just to mention three. First is it compromises patient integrity. I mean, patients are being manhandled and not
lifted up,
very
grabbed, crazy.
Yeah, it's not nice. The other one, which is potentially even more important, is it compromises the health of the staff and the well-being, because they get these back injuries and other injuries from repeatedly lifting these heavy patients. And because of that, many of them go on sick leaves or get exemptions from the doctor from lifting things. So it's a challenge to fill the daily roster in these departments, because they're not able to get enough nurses to do this job. So that's another challenge. And then the third challenge is it creates a real trouble in the workflow. So patients sometimes have to wait 15 minutes, 30 minutes until you can gather enough nurses or other staff to lift the patient, because they don't sit down readily in waiting for patients to come in. So if you think about the investment that hospitals make in this expensive X-rays and other scanning machines, and they're just standing idle as people wait for enough staff to come and lift the patient and then lift them back again when the scanning is done. So your mission was to solve that and disrupt that. And what they came up with is I think it's genius. And the genius here is in its simplicity. So it's a little machine that you wheel around as a portable machine. It's called Atlas. And really what it does, it transfers the patient horizontally from one bed to the other. And it requires only one nurse to do the operation in less than a minute. I saw this innovation of like, really? Nobody came up with it before? They said, no, they have patents on it, and it's amazing. So that this technology can save millions for hospitals and save protect the health of the staff. And what I do with them is really working with them on the commercial plans, the go-to-market plans, the supply chain plans, and also helping with the investment rounds and the investor presentations and to get the funding. So it's really, I'm really working very closely with the CEO. Jakob is a fantastic guy, and the team with him. And my job again is to try to provide as much insight and advice based on my experience. Very exciting journey there.
That sounds absolutely insane. And it's something which I would never even think about beforehand. It's something like that. But you can actually see, just talking to you, the kinds of issues that nurses, doctors have to go through day in, day out, and the patients, most importantly, on their side, isn't ideal, the situation that they've got. But hey, thank you so much for explaining everything that you've explained. And something I'm fascinated to find out, not only from yourself, from lots of leaders across the industry, but in particular here, I think it's quite unique with the amount of different businesses, ideas, startups, all at different points in and it just seems like everything that you're doing, you've got one going public, one at startup, one you're advising the board. It feels like you've got so much going on. How, being a leader, are you managing life physically, mentally, family, roles that you've got, different hats that you have to wear? How are you doing it at the moment?
Yeah, I think for me, what I've learned in my career, I think my happy place, my anchor is really physical activity. So if I'm able to perform some physical activity, then I see an immediate impact also on my ability to think, to concentrate, to be innovative. So I exercise a few times a week. I take long walks with my dog every day. I try to do some mindfulness as well. Sometimes I'm less successful with that, but I do try to do that as well.
Yeah.
And I try to integrate this activity into my daily life. So for example, I try to schedule walk and talk meetings into my schedule. So I do walk outside as I conduct some of my meetings. Of course, it doesn't apply to every meeting, but if you can take some of your meetings outside and have a meaningful conversation while walking, that helps a lot. And even scheduling, the Swedes have something called fika. Fika is like a nickname for a coffee break. And it's basically a social interaction where people from work sit together and have coffee or tea together and just talk. It doesn't have to be work related. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. And it's one of the maybe the secret recipes of Swedish work culture. And so I try to book some of these coffee meetings virtually now as well during the day. So just to interact with people, see how they're doing as well. So social interaction is important as well as physical activity.
Big time.
Yeah, it's fun. And look, maybe I mentioned, so in my previous role as the managing director for Cochlear Bone Anchor Solutions, so we actually implemented a relatively ambitious and holistic wellness program. And that program included everything from yoga and mindfulness, and of course physical activity, healthy food in the canteen, nutrition counseling, free access to doctors and nurses counseling over the phone, and we could really see the impact on the organization that even though workload did not decrease, actually maybe some would say workload increased. We could see much less stress in the organization and happier people, and we measured it. So we have some metrics to prove it.
Wow.
We could see that sick leaves, measured by days of sick leave in the organization, were reduced by 40% over 2 years, and voluntary departures, so employee turnover, was reduced by half, so 50%. And engagement survey that we conduct every year, employee engagement, they went up. The last one was up to 87% satisfaction or engagement rates, which is very high compared to industry standards. So we could see the impact of not only the wellness program, some other activities as well, but the wellness program has played a big part, and you can actually measure it down in the bottom line. So I would recommend that, absolutely, both for myself, but also as leaders.
I want to touch on the fitness part because it's actually something which I've struggled with, especially since COVID-19. And I know, talking to literally all of my friends who are walking around now with bellies, that they probably got the same problem. And it's that basically since everything had kind of started, working from home has meant that I'm working more. And I find myself, and I'm talking to loads of people who have the same thing. I'm getting up at 6 a.m. I'm getting straight on my computer, on the telephone, talking to people across Europe, and then we're working in the US. And now there's not a train journey so often. It's constant working, constantly in podcasting and everything. The fitness and looking after my body has been forced to go second. Okay, there might be the odd week when I'll do it and stuff, but it will only be at points where I'm super stressed. I'm like, I've got to go out and do it. And I've spoken to a lot of people who have that same outlook. How do you look at it?
So I'll challenge you now, if I may.
Go on. Yeah.
You're a leader in your organization, and you would not accept mediocre performance from your employees.
100%.
All right. Well, the same applies to you. So you just need to look at your daily or weekly schedule, and you need to book the time to prioritize your health so that you're able to perform better. And everybody is individual and different, but schedule times in your calendar where you exercise, schedule time in your calendar where you take walks, and those walks can be productive. Like I said, you can take walk and talk meetings, but make sure that those periods of exercise, which is the fuel to your body and your ability to perform better as a manager, are prioritized like everything else, and put metrics on it. Make sure that you have completed 3 exercises a week. If not, you failed. Right?
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that.
And at some point it becomes self-fulfilling because you feel better, you can concentrate more, you're much more positive, and you're much more resilient in through these changes, and therefore you won't, at some point you won't need to book yourself on the calendar anymore. It will just happen by itself.
Absolutely love it. Thank you so much. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are listening who are going to look at that as well, because I'm walking around London and I'm seeing a lot of people who have spent their lockdown in lockdown, which means they're not going out, they're not doing fitness, and all have that same thing. But moving on to something exciting, which is, what are some of the most exciting kind of changes that you see coming up in the medical device space in the future? And with that as well, because any change, any exciting developments is always going to be challenges. What sort of challenges and exciting upcoming things do you see in the future of medical devices?
Yeah, and like you say, I think that every challenge brings an opportunity. So what we've been going through in terms of inability to support procedures and surgeries in the hospitals, the inability to get patients into the hospitals, or procedures being canceled, all that has provided opportunities now to change your business model. So the healthcare industry is already, and the healthcare systems out there are already going through several important changes, trends that will disrupt the healthcare system and delivery of healthcare to patients. So to mention some, I would say the acceleration of telemedicine is one. The other one is the need to reduce risk of bacterial infections, as we know, with COVID and others, and with the pandemic. The continuous pressure on the healthcare budgets and on the availability of staff, especially nursing staff. If you connect all these trends with the challenge of the aging population, you have huge opportunities to disrupt the market. So the companies who will be successful, the companies who are able to develop and change the business model to deliver good care, top priority and top quality care remotely, that are able to also conduct their business, the business to business, business to clinics, also remotely, that are able to support surgeries and procedures remotely, and are able to also deliver good care online directly to the patient's home. So I think that, and we see some of the companies that are already doing that. So I don't think I'm saying anything that is not already understood, at least by some in the industry, that the coming decade will be quite exciting, and the way that we will be receiving care as patients ourselves will be very different over the coming decade than it has been before.
Exciting times ahead, 100%. And in your organizations that you're a part of at the moment and are leading at the moment, how have you gone about business development, sales, new ideas to get around COVID-19, because it's not going to conferences, it's not meeting people face to face? How have you got around it, and how is the market for you across all of those organizations?
So it varies depending on the industry you're in. But if I'm looking at the last 12 months, I would divide it kind of like into at least 2 or 3 phases. The first months of the pandemic, they basically, as I said, brought almost a complete stop of elective procedures. With that sharp decline in sales. And there you go basically into a protective mode where the focus is to manage costs, keeping the employees safe, and supporting your customers, your patients, right? But after that initial period, where things start to turn around, growing sales, maybe not to the level that we wanted them to, but definitely growing. There, the focus has been much on digitalization of the business model. So in analyzing your business model and trying to understand where in the business model does it make sense to digitalize it. For example, the way that you serve the market remotely, it could be one of the areas, but it could also be your interactions with staff or interaction with the suppliers and vendors. So I think every company has been different, but digitalization has been key in what I would call the second phase. The third, kind of connected maybe to the second phase, is really once we've understood the impact of the pandemic, once we understood the cash flow situation in each company, most companies who are successful are the ones who relentlessly continue to invest in product development and market development. So the companies who just went into a total cost savings exercise across the board, without discriminating one way or the other, I think they will suffer. But companies who have been able to reprioritize the resources and continue to innovate and continue to maintain a strong product pipeline, they will come up strong on the other side, especially if they were attentive to the different market needs. So, like I said, not just developing the same product again, but developing the product that will cater to remote care, cater to a new ecosystem, cloud solution, etc. So,
love it.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting. And the good thing again, I see is that I think maybe definitely in Sweden, but in other countries, despite the pandemic, the will of people to invest in new technologies and startups was not reduced. So the world is embracing new technologies and is investing in new technologies, which is fantastic.
100%. I actually, exactly what you're saying is overlapping in my mind to something which I heard another leader in the pharmaceutical space say yesterday: if you aren't growing, you're dying. And if you haven't got the funds to be growing, innovate, be creative, find a way to make it happen. And I thought that is completely in line with everything that you're saying. Find a way to push forward, innovate nonstop, come up with new ideas, and move with the times type of style, which is absolutely brilliant. Onto leadership, and you've got 3 companies. You've been the CEO of organizations before that. What are the secrets to good and successful leadership, and how do you define success in that bracket?
So I won't claim that I have any secrets, but I will say that I do have some what I call principles, leadership principles that I strive to live by. There are really 4 of those, and the first one I think is clarity. So I think that one of the top priorities of any leader is to provide the organization with clarity of purpose, which is the why we do things, clarity of goals, which is what do we need to achieve, and then clarity on the plans, which is how do we do it, and prioritization of those plans. So and it's not just once a year making a big business plan and presenting to the organization, but it's continuously making sure that people understand and buy into why we're doing things and how we're doing things. So clarity is the first one. The second one is visibility. So a leader, in my view, needs to be visible. Gone are the days where leaders were protected behind closed doors and a very vigilant assistant PA who's stopping everybody at the door. Those days gone. You need to be accessible. You need to be visible. Physically possible, but during the pandemic, do it virtually. And why you need to be visible is also because you need to display role model behaviors. People will emulate your behaviors, and therefore the culture that you want to build, the behavior that you want people to emulate, you need to display them yourself. So you need to be visible, and you can't be closed behind closed doors, and that's what builds the company culture. So a leader needs to I call it walk the floors, attend and present at frequent town halls. Other things that we've done in the previous company was coffee with Rom, with one employee from each department came over. I think we did it once a month, where we just talk, just meet for coffee for an hour and talk about things, present each other, and amazing what you learn about people when you just have coffee with them and talk, and just say hi to people in the morning, good morning, and ask them how they're doing. So that's the visibility of the second one. And the third one then is, this is going to sound really fluffy now, but it's genuine care. So people are the most important assets in a company. And it was Richard Branson that said, you take care of your people and they will take care of your business. So leaders who genuinely care for the employees, they foster a culture of trust. And that turns into the motivation and the agility to change in the organization. And what does care mean, right? Are you going to go and give everybody a hug? No. Manifestations that care could be starting with commitment to developing your employees, giving them growth opportunities, challenging them and empowering them to succeed, empower them to make decisions. Another is allowing people the flexibility to manage their own work time. So a leader should never manage people's time, manage their performance. I don't care if people leave work at 3 or at 5 or at 7, whatever the time that works for them, as long as they perform. And in nowadays, when we work so much in project teams, their teammates will hold them accountable anyway. So there's no need, that old-fashioned way of looking at the clock, when is this person leaving? That's gone. Doesn't matter anymore. So care is important. I mean, I mentioned before the wellness program that we implemented at Cochlear Solution as another example, another manifestation of care. If you genuinely care for the employees, it will pay back double fold, and you can measure it in the bottom line. And so that was three, and then the fourth is being humble. And a lot of people will then say, Rom, you're not a humble person. But humble here is more in the sense, some people call it servant leadership. In a nutshell, it means that you as a leader coming to work, it's not the people coming to work for you. It's actually you are working for the people. So your job basically is to facilitate their success. When your people are successful, then you're successful. And it's kind of like the football team coach. It's the coach of the team. When the team wins the cup, the coach becomes successful as well. It's not the coach that played in the field, right? So that's what was important. So that old-fashioned sense of entitlement and that old-fashioned sense of climbing the career ladder to get more of everything, more prestige, more salary, bigger office. Once again, that needs to go away. When you become a leader, you become, in a sense, a servant of your people, and you're there to coach and support them. So that would be my fourth leadership principle. So if I believe that if leaders and leadership teams that are able to live by this principle, they can foster an environment, a culture of trust, where people trust the leaders, people trust the company, and people trust each other. And trust is if any magic ingredients, that's the magic ingredients of high performance. And it's people talk about it, but it's hard to build it. And I think that those four principles can help build that trust.
Really hard to build it. And I've spoken to a phenomenal amount of people leaders who have been trying to build that kind of culture. And the part that you mentioned about the servant side is something which has come up time and time again, not only on the podcast, but talking to people daily. And it comes down really to providing your team with the tools and the atmosphere and the culture necessary to work to the best of their ability, and giving them that flexibility that you mentioned is absolutely true. So thank you so much for going through it. And one final question for you, Ron, which is what piece of advice would you give to other business leaders right now looking to optimize their response to the crisis, which is hopefully near the end, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to have to live, maybe not with a crisis, but we're going to have to live with the new normal, some people call it, for many, many years. So I think my first advice will be, don't fight change. Don't try to fight it. Embrace it and capitalize on it. Yeah. Capitalize on the opportunity that this change is bringing. So that would be the first thing. Related to the question we talked about before, find ways to boost your resilience. Because with your resilience, you'll be able to better manage change and capitalize on the change. So here, again, I recommend a healthy and active lifestyle. And it's one of my recommendations. And integrating it into your daily life. It's important that it becomes part of your work life. And then maybe a third, as a leader, your success depends on your team. So surround yourself with competent people. Support them, empower them, care for them, as we talk about. And maybe most important, remember that most of the people that you hired have more expertise in their area than you do as their boss. So you really need to be able to support them. And let's say it this way, if that is not the case, then you're hiring the wrong people. So
100%. Yeah, I love that.
So that will be my advice, I think.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And you know what? I had actually one more question as well, because you mentioned those 4 points in regards to leadership. One of them was visibility. So making sure that you're a presence, making sure that you're known to everyone. Question for you, which is during this time, when a lot of people are working from home, I know it's different in Sweden in part, but what advice would you give to leaders who are trying to implement that part, but are living in a world of Zoom and distance and all of that sort of stuff? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, it is challenging, but look, what I would say is, if you can use the tools that you've got. So frequent Zoom or Teams meetings on various levels with your team, also with the entire organization. Town halls are actually in a way easier now to implement with Teams, where everybody can log in and you can make sure that you, not only yourself, but make sure that also the rest of your leadership team all have space to deliver the messages. So town hall meetings, virtual ones as well. I would say virtual coffees, as mentioned. So once a month, people, department heads, team leaders should nominate one person from their team to join a virtual coffee with you, and just spend an hour to talk about things. Each one present themselves, what they do in the company, a little bit of that they want to share in their personal life. It's amazing what you can achieve with something like that.
Great idea.
Yeah, schedule walk and talk meetings with people, because outside it's in many countries it's safe. So you can meet people physically in a walk and talk outside meeting. Those are some examples. I would say be visible, find ways to be visible. Blogs. For a while there, I did every Sunday. I did a weekly blog where 5 to 7 minutes on my iPhone, very amateur, and just sent it out with some messages of the week and the coming week and some words of encouragement. And sometimes I try to make them funny. Don't be too self-righteous and too important. Make them funny. I show them as well. There was a time where we were all struggling with this claustrophobia of being indoors, and I show them about my life, how I'm working sometimes from the floor or from the couch.
Oh man, love it.
Just try to bring in a little bit of humor into it as well.
Pleasure, Rom. Thank you so much for coming on today. Absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much. Appreciate it. Take care and talk very, very soon.
Thank you. You have a great day. Bye-bye.
And you as well.